The Haggadah is a confusing book. It's not just you. The Haggadah means the telling. God tells us in the Torah, and you shall tell your child on that day. In the Seder, it's the fifth step called Magid, telling your child. What are the core ingredients needed to do this in the proper manner? There are 5 ingredients that are necessary. Let me list them first. Number 1, it has to be done in a format of question and answer. The child has to ask questions. Number 2, we begin with degradation. We begin with what we call shame, the negative, and we conclude with praise, the salvation. Number 3, we're going to expound the biblical verses that talk about leaving Egypt. We're going to expand upon them. Number 4, we are going to teach the reasons for the rituals that we're doing. And number 5, the approach we're going to take it is as if we are leaving Egypt now ourselves at this very moment. Those are the top 5. Number 1, the Torah tells us in a few places if a child will ask you regarding the rituals of Egypt. Because the Torah tells us that, our sages understood that the mitzvah of Passover should be done as an answer to a question by a child. So we begin with the Mah Nishtanah, the 4 questions. At its core, the child's questions are, what are we celebrating tonight, and why in this manner are we celebrating it? Number 2 ingredient, then, after the questions comes, we start with the short answer. We begin with degradation and end with praise. What is considered the shame? What's the central negative experience of slavery, and what is the positive experience of freedom? And we have 2 versions. We were slaves and God took us out. Alternatively, we were idol worshippers and now God has drawn us near. These 2 themes are what we are celebrating tonight, and we have both in our Haggadah. Number 3, we teach and expound biblical verses, and this is where people get lost. We go back to another biblical ritual called the first fruits. About 50 days after Passover, Jews would bring, on the holiday of Shavuos, first fruit offerings to the Kohen in the temple, and they would proclaim a story. An Aramean tried to destroy my father, and we went down to Egypt in small in number, and we were enslaved by the Egyptians, and we were tortured and tormented, and we cried out to God, and God heard our cry. And He did great wonders and miracles and took us out and brought us to this wonderful land flowing with milk and honey, and here are the first fruits. Now, every farmer knew those words. Every farmer was familiar with these concepts. So when our sages had to choose a biblical text to be used for telling the story, they chose one that everybody knew. And they took this text and they expounded and expanded the text by linking every single word with other verses in the Torah that describe in great detail the story of leaving Egypt. And this is the 3 pages of your Haggadah that is telling the story, but each word has omni significance, and we go and we expand and we expound upon it, creating the center of the Haggadah. Number 4, teaching the historical reason for the rituals. The child had asked, why do we do these certain things? As the Torah even describes, in that day the child will say, what is this? Pointing to the things that you're doing. And we're supposed to explain the story through the ritual objects that we are engaged in and the rituals we are doing. So we answer the child by saying, why did we eat the Paschal sacrifice? Because God passed over our homes when the Egyptians got a plague. Why are we eating the matzah? Because when God freed us, it did not have time to rise. Why are we eating the maror? Because they embittered our lives. And we tell it in a manner as if it happened to us personally. And every generation a person has to see as if he went out. As we say, tell the child, God did to me when I left Egypt. Therefore I have to praise God. Thank God we're free.